Hey everybody, it's Theo Vaughn here, and I got a question. When it comes to soda, are you really picking a zero sugar cola that you actually prefer, or are you just settling for what you've always had? That's the question. And I'll say this, when it comes to taste, I find that nothing beats Pepsi Zero Sugar. But you don't just have to take my word for it. That would be ridiculous. Pepsi has been doing blind taste tests for years. No labels, no brand names, just taste. And last year, they brought back the Pepsi Challenge, and the results were clear. 66% of people agreed and said that Pepsi Zero Sugar tastes better than Coca-Cola Zero Sugar. In fact, Pepsi Zero Sugar won in every market they tested. So if you're grabbing a zero sugar soda, go with the one people keep choosing when taste is the only thing that matters. Go out and try Pepsi Zero Sugar today. Let your taste decide.
And speaking of not getting any younger, Keith, today we are talking about ghosts.
We are talking about ghosts. Our bread and butter.
Our bread and butter. Keith's favorite topic when it's not witches is ghosts.
Yes, second favorite. No, it's up there. I'd say it's on par.
It is. I do love a good haunting story. These are honestly some of my favorite stories to do, folks.
Yeah.
As you've probably guessed by the title of today's episode, folks, we got a good old family haunting in this one. It does have some quite chilling moments.
It does.
We have some cameos from familiar figures.
Ooh, who could it be?
Ooh. And it's going to be great. You know what would be great if they showed up to your house, Keith of the Haunting.
Right, yeah.
You got any scary encounters?
Had a spooky encounter the other night. Now, it definitely wasn't as spooky as the last one I was talking about. Remember with my daughter seeing the silhouette of a man in white coming down the stairs?
Oh, yeah. When you guys were walking in through the door. Yeah. That was creepy as
So
well.
that's definitely up there. I think that's the height of scariness there.
Yeah.
But this one was definitely weird. I was in my office, and when I'm in my office, I'm looking at my computer. On my left-hand side is the window.
Okay.
And it was nighttime, so I had the window down, I had the curtains closed. And the curtains, it was a windy night, so the curtains start wafting at me. I was like, for fuck's sake.
Like it's coming like a draft through the window or something?
Like the curtains they started like billowing out nearly, like on top of me.
The window was open.
That's what I thought.
Oh.
So I was like, oh fuck, I must have left the window open. So I opened the curtains to close the window, and it was closed shut. I was like, weird. So I closed them again. It didn't do it again.
Oh,
for like the rest of the night.
There's a person under the curtains.
It was weird. Yeah, it was
towards
just like,
you.
Yeah, it was like the curtain kind of billowing out a little bit.
Like there's a hand behind the curtain.
I didn't see a hand, but definitely something kind of pushing out. Yeah, as if a big gust of wind came in and was blowing the curtains at me. I was like, oh. And again, as I said, like for the rest of the evening, then it didn't do it again. So there wasn't a draft. Yeah, the door to the office was closed as well. So there was no draft coming in there.
Right. Was it like did they move a lot or just like a little bit?
Enough to annoy me. It came out of me. Yeah.
Oh my god.
It was spooky.
Somebody's coming through the curtains.
Right.
Trying to get you.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't like that.
Trying to touch me up.
No, that's actually genuinely creepy.
It was creepy. Yeah.
What are you talking about? That you thought your daughter seeing a guy in white coming down the stairs? That's definitely creepier.
Do you think so?
Something tried to touch you through the curtains.
Creep.
Yeah. What were you doing on your computer at the time?
Oh, well, yeah. I could have used a hand actually.
While you're there. Well, speaking of that sort of thing, Keith, no horror movies. I really do need to watch horror movies. I've been slacking. Guys, please send recommendations, actually. Yeah. I think that's the reason why I haven't watched any good horror flicks yet. It's because I can't think of, I don't know, it doesn't seem to be any out at the moment.
You know, there's a lot of, not good, fine movies, like free movies on YouTube. They're kind of like B movies, but
like short horror movies?
No, like full movies.
Yeah.
And some of them are pretty decent.
Okay.
Like, do you know Hell House LLC?
Oh, that's great. I like them.
That's all on YouTube.
I mean, the first one is the only good
First
one.
one's good, yeah.
The other ones are pretty shite.
Yeah, but that level of movie, they're all on YouTube.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. I don't mind like low budget. I don't look down my nose at them. I'm not from high horrors. Although, a really good horror movie I watched, I've spoken about it here on the podcast, was Milk and Cereal, which is done by two YouTubers who made a horror movie. And that was really, really good.
Yeah.
I probably did talk about it on the podcast, but I think the last horror movie I watched was The Frankenstein, the Netflix one.
Oh, yeah.
I thought that was honestly a load of shite. I thought it was fucking terrible. And I did not think it was good. I don't think I like Guillermo del Toro's movies really much at all, other than like maybe one of the Hellboys.
I like the aesthetics.
I think that's it. I think he's like he's kind of like a Tim Burton kind of guy. It's like the style of his movies is really cool.
Yeah.
Movies themselves are
dog shit.
well, not great. I think that might be the last horror movie I watched was Frankenstein, which, oof, boy, if that's the last one I'm going out on, fucking hell, that's terrible. God damn, I really need to do better.
Yeah, so send the recommendations
in. Send recommendations in. You can just email us in, I guess, or comment or whatever. You know how to reach us. You'll find us one way or the other, or we'll find you. Dun, dun. On June 30th, 1986, the 7-strong extended Snedeker family, led by Alan and Carmen from Monticello, New York, signed the lease to a 5-bedroom, 2-bathroom home at 208 Meriden Avenue in Southington, Connecticut. Now, the colonial-era house had been split into a duplex, so the Snedekers would be living between the first floor and the basement. The process of moving homes, though otherwise smooth, had itself been rooted in tragedy from the very beginning. The eldest of Alan, a stonemason, and Carmen Snedeker's young sons, 13-year-old Philip, had been receiving treatment for cancer, specifically Hodgkin's lymphoma. The move would put the family significantly closer to the treatment center at the University of Connecticut, and also mean that should Philip need it, emergency care was far more readily available. Along with Alan, Carmen, and Philip, the other residents of the Snedeker clan were the couple's other sons, Bradley and Alan Jr., plus the girls, their daughter Jennifer, and their niece, Tammy. Tammy was staying with her aunt, uncle, and cousins due to her own parents' divorce.
This had all the ingredients for some heavy paranormal poltergeist
you got a
type
good
activity.
Family there.
Yeah. Like we've mentioned this before in previous episodes, like the Smurl haunting and the Black Monk. But like apparently children, especially those just entering the teenage years, they're like a magnet for ghosts. The theory is that children are just so emotionally volatile that some form of psychic energy is generated, which can power paranormal activity. And these paranormal entities, they're drawn to negative energy of an unhappy adolescent.
Ooh.
And they feed on it. Nom, 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 nom. So, like, between moving cities, the cancer, and a divorce thrown in for good measure, these kids, they were going through it. Basically, I guess, like, this theory, it just says that it's easier to blame a ghost instead of admitting your child might need help. But I like the ghost.
I'm going to stick with the ghosts,
Yeah,
honestly,
I'll go with the ghost.
if I ever were to have kids.
Yeah.
They're haunted.
Ignore the issue.
Stuff it down with some brown.
However, Keith, are you listening?
I am listening.
Just a few hours after the last of the Snedekers' possessions were brought into their new home in Southington, Connecticut, Philip, sickly Philip, told his family something that took the shine off the success of the move. Mom, this house is evil. We need to leave here right away.
Ooh, that's
not
what you want to hear.
Yeah, but they told him to suck it up, move on, folks. Must be the chemo. He's fine. Don't worry about it. Just days after completing the move, the children had picked out their bedrooms and, barring their son's now forgotten warning, all seemed to be going as smoothly as could be expected. But then, Carmen went down to the basement. According to Carmen, the entrance to the basement had previously been blocked by building materials left behind from a prior renovation. When she finally had access, the lease was signed, and it was too late to back out, no matter what she might find down there. Now, I find this weird. They signed a lease with the owner of the house. What was his name? Daryl Kern. They signed a lease. It was a duplex. They have 2 floors. They have the first floor, the ground floor, and then the basement.
Yes.
And they never bothered to check the basement.
Right, yeah.
I don't get this part of the story at all.
I think what happened was they knew they needed to move to this area to be closer to the hospital for their son's treatment. And when she was on the way to view a house, she seen a sign up for a house for rent.
Okay.
And at this point, I think she thought she was exhausted from viewing all the houses.
She's like, fuck it, this'll do.
Yeah, she kind of seen builders kind of coming in and out, kind of helping to renovate. So she kind of went up to it, was like, oh, you renting out? So she had a brief viewing of the house.
Okay.
And just said, this looks good, I'll take it.
And honestly, as we have both house hunted, it sucks. I hate it. It's honestly, I hate looking at houses.
It's the worst, yeah.
I would also probably be like, this'll do, I don't care.
Yeah. Look, I see my house and I seen the names inscribed in the attic. It's like, fuck it.
Exactly, yeah.
It's fine. I'm sure it's grand.
No new names appearing in your attic?
No new names, still those 2 names.
Your own name
I'm still trying to hunt them down. I can't find anything on them. But, yeah.
Well, Carmen didn't find any names in her basement. She didn't find any dead bodies down there either. Well, not current dead bodies, if you know what I mean. All evidence indicated there had been dead bodies there in the past. Surrounding Carmen Snedeker in the basement were various tools and instruments that suspiciously resembled those needed to prepare, dissect, and embalm the newly deceased. Unknown to the Snedekers was the little matter of the house's previous life as the Hallahan Funeral home. The owner, Daryl Kern, insisted that the family were already well aware of the history of the building before they signed the lease, let alone before they moved in. But however, the family were saying, bullshit. Nobody told us this is a funeral home before we moved in. And who knows if they did know or not.
According to Carmen, she did have some suspicions that it might actually be a funeral home before they moved in. So the night before they did the big move, Carmen claimed to have a terrifying dream/vision about the house. So she dreamt that, and quote, caskets lined up neatly, naked bodies with deathly pale skin, tools, equipment that looked like old and sinister, hooks, chains, a faceless man wearing a white smock with dark brown stains caked on it, walking along the row of caskets.
Ooh, that sounds cool as fuck, honestly. And honestly, if Daryl had heard that, he'd be like, see, she knew. She clearly knew. Right? She dreamt it.
Exactly. Also, like, there were other signs that this may have been a funeral home before they moved in. Like,
was there a big sign outside?
Literal signs. Yeah.
I was just joking.
Literal signs. So the funeral home, it had only been out of business for about 2 years. And according to the owner, the sign for Hallahan Funeral Home was still up when she viewed the house.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Okay.
So who knows? You know? Maybe she just missed it.
Now, let it be noted, by the way, that would be far from the last time the path of the story would diverge, depending on who's telling the story. Now, according to Carmen, the grim findings, along with the various steel and glass instruments whose purposes could only be guessed at by the layperson, also included in the basement were several items that would have scared the bejesus out of anybody, regardless of their medical training. Toe tags, floor drains, personal belongings of the dead, even actual photographs of prepared corpses. And from that discovery, it didn't take long for strange occurrences to begin. That's another classic haunting. You find something you're not supposed to find. Yep. In this case, it was the entire basement, it seems. You're not supposed to come down here. And then that's when the ghosts are like, you're fucked now.
We're locked in.
Mm-hmm. Now, first of the strange things to happen in the house would be stuff that most of us would just put down to lapses in memory. Wasn't the craziest things. Music would play that nobody could find the source of. Objects would be misplaced, or an item might disappear from one room, reappearing in another, with none of the family claiming responsibility. Occupying their new house also came with another unexpected effect on the Snedekers. All of them would begin to feel a constant and overwhelming sense of dread, that something bad was coming. Despite all of this, the large open space and privacy provided by the basement was much more appealing to the Snedeker boys, Philip and Bradley, than their current bedroom, the old casket display room.
Yep, that'll do.
I don't think I'd really want to sleep in the old casket display room.
Well, I don't know, like the basement, it sounded like it was straight out of a Hostel movie. So it used to be the morgue where the bodies were prepared. So along with the assortment of medical tools, which you mentioned, there was also a blood-stained wall and blood-stained sink, as well as a pit that served as the blood tank. You had to have the blood tank separate from the septic tank for hygiene purposes, apparently.
Jeez, a blood tank, wow.
Yeah, this is where the bodies were drained. So it's wild. Like, it's hard to believe that Carmen saw the blood in the walls and were like, we'll take it.
Yeah.
Our son with cancer can live down here.
Yeah, this is good to go.
Yeah.
Soon after, Philip described having daily visions of a man with hair down to his waist and pitch black eyes who kept coming to him and telling him to do things. Sometimes the apparition would just say Philip's name. Other times, he would threaten to hurt him. The long-haired man wasn't the only ghoul to visit Philip either. Several more began, always male, appearing at sporadic intervals throughout the day. In contrast to the first, another spirit who reappeared often was an older man dressed in a smart, pinstriped suit with white hair and eyes.
Ooh. Yeah, it was really creepy. Philip would hear voices calling him down to the basement when he was upstairs. So the voices, they would call his name, sometimes like in a laughing way, saying, Philip, come down here. Philip, you've got to see this.
Oh, fuck, I don't like that at all.
The worst part is, though, when he tried to tell his parents, they didn't believe him, saying that he was just hearing things. Then, for some reason, his mum tried to explain it away by saying his mind was just playing tricks on him because the house used to be a funeral home. A fact he didn't know before that point.
Thanks for telling me, man. That's great.
Like, talk about like burdening your child. It was really like, look, you only think it's haunted because your blood-stained room used to be a morgue where they cut up dead bodies. Now, let's never speak of this again. Yeah. Good night. He was warned not to tell the other children in case it frightened them.
So they accused him of just seeing or like hearing things because it was funeral home.
I didn't know that.
And one of the most horrifying early experiences didn't involve Philip at all. Rather, it was Carmen who would recount an incident in which she had been mopping the floor when all of a sudden she became overwhelmed by a foul stench that she could only relate to the smell of death and rotting flesh. The smell was soon accompanied by the shocking sight of water from the mop running blood red. She said, quote, "The mop water was blood red. I mean deep, deep red. It made my skin crawl. I started getting nervous that I was ruining the floor."
Oh, no, not
Start
the
mopping
floor.
the floor with blood. That's your worst thing. Stop mopping. All of the Snedeker family felt like they were living alongside something else. Something unnatural and uninvited. Whatever it was, it didn't want them living there. It started relatively slowly and harmlessly. Carmen would set the table, but after she left the room and returned, she would find the plates had all been neatly put away in the cupboards. According to Carmen, this happened when no one else was in the house. Over time, the abuse elevated from unsettling threats to being horrifyingly realized. The physical effects also escalated, from taps to slaps, eventually to being grabbed and groped. Not a moment went by that the family weren't on edge at the prospect of what might come next. The crescendo of violence came when both of the adult Snedekers, Alan and Carmen, would claim to have the darkest possible experience with whatever the presence was haunting their home. Each told their own story of having been sexually assaulted by some overwhelming unseen force. The assaults weren't one-offs either, but recurrent and increasingly violent. Still, the family remained. They just really hated house hunting.
Right? I know. Like, we can make it work, okay? Alan, he used to say that he'd suddenly be awakened at night by these muffled voices in the house and music, which sounded tinny, like old music from a bygone era playing on gramophone. When he'd go to check it out, he'd go into the boys' room to see if they were playing music or talking. As soon as he opened the door and seen the boys sleeping, it would all stop. That's classic. That's straight out of a horror movie playbook. Yeah. I feel I would go a different direction if I was a ghost. Instead of playing music, I'd like to irritate people, wake people up by me trying to learn violin.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which actually could be spooky as well, I guess.
That probably would be spooky. It's like that violin strings.
Maybe me practicing beatboxing.
Yeah, that'll definitely piss people off. Yeah. Now, Philip was not only much more outwardly affected than the rest of his family, but he seemed to be slowly being driven to madness altogether. So much so that his parents were worried he was suffering from undiagnosed mental illness, maybe even schizophrenia. His entire personality, once that of a happy, normal child, had begun to shift dramatically. Not only had he begun to pull back from the rest of the family, but he'd also started to mistreat his family. Bradley was the most common target. Philip locked his brother in a chest and left him there for his parents to find. When his parents questioned him about why he'd done it, Philip seemed genuinely confused, unable to recall the incident ever even happening. On a separate occasion, he put Bradley on a gurney, a curio left behind from the house's former incarnation, and spun him violently, all the while Bradley begged him over and over to stop.
Yeah, they seen a huge shift in his personality. He became extremely distant and he started wearing an old leather jacket with a skull and crossbones on the back.
Hell yeah.
And he began listening to heavy music.
All
the signs of a Satanist there, buddy.
I love it.
I think the biggest problem he was distant was his family kept gaslighting him, being like, "You're not hearing things. It's fine." There was one time he was down in his room. I think he listened to heavy music to drown out the voices that he was hearing. And there was these big French doors in his room. And he heard a noise through the music that he was playing. He looked over him and he seen this gauntly pale face with dark long hair. And his mouth was moving as if he was talking to him, but no sound was coming out. And then the thing kept getting closer, and then he finally ran up the stairs to the dining room, and he tried to explain what he saw, and they were all like, "You didn't see shit."
Yeah,
and it kind of set him back down again. But the weird part was, part of his shift, he actually started to really enjoy being down in the basement, and he started calling these entities his friends, which is a lot more concerning than a leather jacket.
Yeah, okay.
But his family were more concerned about the leather jacket. His dad was like, "Where'd you get that?" Like, "You're not in a gang."
The worst of Philip's bizarre and violent behavior was yet to come, though. Out of nowhere, and seemingly for no reason at all, he attacked his cousin, Tammy. The assault wasn't any regular childhood fight between relatives, however. It was considered severe enough that Philip was remanded to a hospital for psychiatric observation for 45 days. The young boy was clearly troubled, but doctors believed that the cause of his issues were much more likely to be of this realm. After Philip described the visions he'd seen and the voices he'd heard, he was formally diagnosed with schizophrenia. The diagnosis came with the caveat that though they were indeed very strong, the medications he'd been prescribed to treat his cancer had not been known to cause hallucinations or to trigger schizophrenic illness. Now, the forced confinement to the hospital also caused a split in Philip's relationship with his parents, and probably the leather jacket didn't help.
Right.
Carmen admitted that her son no longer trusted her, and it would take years before they fully reconciled. It was during her son's psychiatric committal that Carmen had the most terrifying and explicitly violent experience yet. On an otherwise calm day, while she was having a shower, Carmen found herself tightly engulfed by the heavy plastic shower curtain. The shower curtain very quickly wrapped around me, and I couldn't push away. I thought, this thing is trying to kill me. The Snedeker's niece wasn't spared either. Because Philip was out of the house, the then 18-year-old Tammy came to her aunt and ominously said to her, "Aunt Carmen, it's coming. Can you feel it?"
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah. She then grabbed onto Carmen and hugged her tightly, seemingly terrified. When Carmen managed to prise her niece away from her for a moment, she saw something that shook her to her core. The impression of a hand moving up under the teenager's pajama top. Okay, that's freaky.
It is weird. It's really creepy. I think the family, they initially thought that with Philip out of the house, all of the unexplained events would stop, because he just kept on going on about it. And they were like, stop, there's nothing happening.
Bullshit, yeah.
He kept on going on. Like, perhaps they thought he had some hand in it, or maybe just brought bad vibes. Either way, this was clearly not the case. Most of the family had claimed to be violently attacked after he left. Alan actually went on the Sally Jesse Raphael talk show in 1992. So this is after all this happened, but he explained his attack in great detail. So he said, quote, "We were lying in bed. Carmen had already fallen asleep. I felt this strange sensation coming over my body. Before I had a chance to reach over to Carmen to tell her something was wrong, I was frozen. I couldn't move. And then I felt this stinging penetration in my anal area.
Ugh.
And I was trying to scream to cry out for Carmen to help me somehow, but I couldn't move. After a while, I don't know how long it had gone away. There was no more sensation. I woke Carmen up. I said to Carmen, I think I was sodomized by a demon."
Jesus Christ.
It was wild. Like, to go on national TV and talk about this, like, I feel it does kind of add some credibility to the story. Like, they actually believed something was infesting their home.
You couldn't torture that out of me.
You couldn't waterboard me that out of me. It's wild. And it's weird. Like, there's a clip on YouTube of them on this talk show talking about it, and it's peak 90s TV.
Okay.
So they're trying to, like, in the talk show, there's a huge audience, and they're all on stage, the whole family, and they're recanting these events, but to kind of give like a visual to the audience, they're sitting in bed. So they brought a bed out on stage.
Wow, just
they're
a
in
full
the bed,
reenacting. Wow.
Talking about how, just sitting there talking about how they got assaulted by this ghost.
Is that on YouTube?
Yeah.
Okay, Regina, put that in. Put
very
some
good.
snippets of that in here.
It's very funny.
Now you're about ready to tuck in for the night when all of a sudden you hear music like this. What happened next?
Well, Sally, the music would wake me up at night. I'd be sound asleep. I would hear the music playing, and I would say to myself, what is that? And I would lie there for 5 or 10 minutes and listen to it. Along with the music, I could hear 3 or 4 voices. They were older men.
Now, when we used to get into bed, the bed would begin to vibrate. And it would be a gentle vibration at first, and it got worse and worse. And the bed, as Kelly said, had a pulse and a heartbeat.
Like a heartbeat, yeah.
And we had this thing that would walk around the bed. It had really small feet, like a cat. We didn't have a cat. It would walk around the bed, and if it sat down, it would be as an adult male sitting, the impression of the bed. It had several voices. Sometimes it would take on the voice of one of the children to come into the room. It would say, "Mommy, Mommy," and it would be the sweet voice of your child, and you turn, and there would be this dark presence of a smoke figure just standing there laughing at you. And then other times it had the deep, raspy voice where it would insult and shout profane things and insult you. It was horrible.
There was one point where you say you actually were possessed by a demonic force, and you, Al, say you witnessed it. Can you tell us about it?
This was one of the most terrifying events that happened in the house. I've drawn some sketches, if I may. Going back to bed, I sat down, and I was no longer in my room. I was in a dark room. I don't know if you can catch this on camera. I was in complete darkness. I couldn't feel the temperature of my skin. I couldn't hear myself speak. I couldn't see anything but blackness. I knew I was no longer in my room. The entity opened up a hole, and he started shouting obscenities at me. And when I began to pray the Our Father, he got worse. And he said, there's no way you could possibly believe what you've been taught as a child. I went into this place. It was called Ithram, a desert road of hot tears, and I was taken down this road. These represent souls, lost souls.
Obviously, the exorcism worked then. You're very lucky.
There was no exorcism.
I don't think there was an exorcism.
Dig down 12 inches behind every corner of the house. 12 inches, there is an exorcism medal. And there are also other things that you can find there. There's all kinds of the exorcism. I cannot give you.
Oh, I talked no Catholic priest within like 100 miles of this place has ever set foot in your house since the last funeral was performed by the previous owners.
You know, Father Kabbalah, who's been a priest in the Immaculate Conception Church
in Southington.
He's the
one that told us forget about it.
25 years. Yeah. And he was a friend of mine, and I said, I'm moving in the Hallahan house. He said, Yvonne, there was never anything there.
That's baloney.
And I said, well, if there is, they're going to have to learn to live with me.
We went to him, and we talked to him.
My money's on you, Yvonne.
The whole point with this is, I have a 7- and 6-year-old home. They have 4 kids or 5 kids that were in the house. If the board creaked in the house, I'd have my kids out of there that night.
I
don't care if I had to sleep on the street or in the car, in a local motel. You're going to tell me that you experienced all this and you kept your kids there for 2 years?
How about a name? Just one name.
Father A is the name I give you. I don't have to give
a name, a full name.
I can prove. These are secret things. We are Catholic, and we
secret. You're sitting here talking about being raped and sodomized by some sort of entity, but you won't give a name.
It was all backed up.
I'm telling you what happened to me.
One of the ones that came around the house go boo, boo through the window.
No, once you guys started doing this and it got to the paper.
Sounds like something you do.
Oh, very likely.
When he returned to his parents, scared for their ailing son's safety, regardless of the cause, the Snedekers sent Philip to live with relatives, which seemed to separate him from whatever was causing his torment. From then on, the visions and experiences ceased. To his family, Philip's sudden return to his formerly happy, outgoing demeanor and the ceasing of visits from specters and spirits was further evidence that the root of his issues did not stem from inside his mind, but something was evil in the house. They were desperate to get to the bottom of what was going on and what it was that had plagued their lives since they had moved into a former funeral home. Badly shaken by the latest string of experiences, Carmen contacted her local parish priest, then the archdiocese, and finally she began contacting various paranormal researchers and experts in the occult. The Warrens make an appearance, our old friends. Ed and Lorraine strike back yet again.
They're back, baby.
It wouldn't be a real haunting if Ed and Lorraine weren't here.
It's true. They need to be there to document it.
If they haven't documented, it doesn't count, folks. They're the only real ones. I don't think we need to go through again the shit that they did in their life and all these disturbing things that they've been up to. I mean, we should really do a deep dive on them.
We should.
Someday.
They're the most fascinating charlatans.
Oh my
they're
god.
So good.
Slash pedophile, probably. Slash
possibly.
Abusers, definitely. And liars. And honestly, just sort of pieces of shit.
Yep.
But boy, oh boy, are they entertaining.
That's true.
So they get passed.
They put on a show.
Yeah. You know it's getting good when the Warrens show up. So the Warrens were first called in by the Snedeker family in late July, and they subsequently embedded 2 psychic researchers in the home. After 9 weeks, they came to the conclusion that something demonic was trapped within the walls of the Snedeker's home. I mean, they're not going to give you any other answer. Of course it is. The Warrens told the Hartford Courant that on a scale of 1 to 10, they rated the haunting at a sensible 9.
Yeah. We gotta leave room. You know?
Exactly, and we don't want to over-dramatize.
Yeah. What if the devil shows up? That's a 10.
Yeah. Another paranormal researcher who stayed with the family during this time, John Zaffis, described the haunting as one of the worst he'd come up against in his career. He even compared the other cases he'd experienced as being like Casper the Friendly Ghost when compared to what was happening here. Zaffis even had his own ghostly encounter with a full-bodied apparition that appeared to him one night in the summer. It began at the top of the main stairwell in the house, and as the figure descended, he heard this ghost clearly ask,
"Do you know what they did to us?"
Now, Zaffis was left disturbed by his time in the Snedeker household, and was entirely convinced of the house being haunted by something dark and powerful enough to affect the living world. And the implication of the question asked by the lost soul was bad enough. But the Warrens would later make it explicit when they stated it was their opinion that the issues, the haunting, had been caused by mistreatment of the dead. And by mistreatment, somebody was sticking their pecker where it don't belong. But the Warrens thought the likely culprit had been an undertaker during the days of the building's life as a morgue, long gone. By 2 years, so not that long.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
The investigators would also claim to have experienced much of the same phenomena that the family had, being slapped, grabbed, and punched.
That's so funny that the Warrens hung around for 9 weeks.
Yeah. We're like, hey, you listen, free dinners.
Yeah. It's mad that, like, they come up with this whole story of necrophilia and touch bodies. And, like, as you said, it was only out of business 2 years. Mm-hmm. People who owned it are like, what?
Yeah, exactly. We're still around.
We just moved. But this case, it really reminds me of the Smurl haunting that we covered. Another family haunted by demons who like to sexually assault people.
Mm-hmm. Rapist demons.
Yeah. And the Warrens covered that as well. Mm-hmm. Coincidence?
Mm. On September 6th, 1988, the Warrens brought in 2 Catholic priests and a deacon to the Snedeker home to exorcise any demons that might have embedded themselves within the family. After an attempt to rid the house of the unholy presence by blessing the house and performing mass, when, well, that was deemed to have failed, the Warrens and clergymen decided that a 3-hour exorcism, hey, that'll get the job done. The ritual consisted largely of long spoken prayers read in Latin and ordering the thing to leave through invoking Christ's name.
Please, Lord, help me to release this demon! Thank you, Lord.
The Warrens were finally satisfied that the house was clear, but warned that the door could be opened for any presence to return if anybody in the house were to perform a seance or similar ritual. Now, the legitimacy of the exorcism, whether it was in fact sanctioned by the church, has been called into question many times since. By the time it would have taken place, sanctioned exorcisms, thanks largely to the huge amount of negative press caused by, well, The Exorcist and high-profile failed exorcisms that inspired that movie, they were a serious rarity within the Catholic Church, so the likelihood of them having an actual exorcism was shaky to say the least. But then again, hey, it's the Warrens telling the story. Nothing really matters, and probably none of it is true.
Yeah.
And by the way, what an easy ending to the haunting. They're just like,
it kind of just
had an exorcism and then...
Sometimes things just end. I always feel like the Warrens are like, I can just imagine the priest again. It's just some guy and he always comes up like smelling a bit of booze, you know?
Yeah,
but it's always like an ex-priest. But yeah, apparently like exorcisms, as I said, they're not easy to get approval for. Apparently they're extremely rare, slow to get approval, they're bishop controlled, medically gated as well. One of the first things they do is just to check that there's no like mental factors going on. And they're actively discouraged unless absolutely necessary. Also, I never realised before that, but the Catholic Church, it breaks down exorcisms into minor and major cases.
Ooh.
So, minor exorcisms are prayers used to break the influence of evil and sin in a person's life, where major exorcism is employed only when there is a case of genuine demonic possession, namely when it is determined that the presence of the devil is in the body. And I really like the idea of demons having a minor and major league.
Yeah, exactly. You're not up there with the big dogs yet.
One day. I love the idea of like a demon that's being drafted up, you know, like he made it.
So like many cases of real-life hauntings, it was the involvement of the Warrens that would bring the story into the national consciousness. It was through the demonologist couple that the Snedekers were introduced to horror novelist Ray Garton, who the Warrens had hired to tell the true, wink wink, story of the Snedeker family's experiences. Now, Ray Garton would later tell a journalist for Horror Bound magazine that in the process of interviewing the family members for his book, In a Dark Place, the story of a true haunting, author Garton quickly realized that the family's stories, they weren't quite lining up. Each of the families seemed to have a very different account of the same events. Now, when he took his concerns to Ed Warren, and Ed Warren had put the family in touch with this guy to write their story, but he's like, their story's not making any sense. He goes back to Ed Warren, and Ed Warren says, in no uncertain terms, quote, "Oh, they're crazy. You've just got some of the story. Just use what works and make the rest up. Just make it up. Make it scary." He literally told the author of that. It's all bullshit. They're insane. Make it up.
I love this guy.
He's hilarious. Honestly, I like him.
Yeah. Well, apart from the whole abuse stuff. If you ignore that part of it.
If you just ignore that.
He's a character.
Yeah. Garton did as he was told, and the Warrens were paying him to do it after all. Of course, they'd pay him to write it, and then they'd get all the money from when the book was sold. And he did it a little too well. The story spread, and the family continued to profess its veracity, even adopting aspects of Garton's account into their own memories. The family would have undoubtedly been aware of the similar situation of the Lutz family in Amityville, New York. Not only had they told their story of a violent haunting on a national scale, they'd made a lot of money doing it, and so the Snedekers were like, cha-ching, motherfucker.
Absolutely.
Cash in, baby.
I read the book last week. It was great. Well, it was great. It was good. It was fine.
It was fine. Really? So it's would you read it again? Key, let's use your movie review scale. Would you read it again?
I wouldn't read it again.
Okay,
no.
Not good.
Would I recommend it? No. Well, I think if you're interested in the case, I'd recommend. It's clearly a work of fiction.
Yeah.
And it's
so basically everything we've read so far is a work of fiction.
Yeah, well, we don't know. 80% of the book is all like conversations that they had. He wasn't there for all that, and they can't remember all his conversations. So it was all
just making up conversations.
Yeah.
It also sounds boring.
Yeah, like there was definitely some spooky elements in it. The guy in the French doors.
Yeah,
that
does sound scary.
Shouting with no sound coming out. That was creepy. Like there's definitely some very creepy aspects of it, which I'm actually not sure if movies were influenced by that or he was influenced by movies. But there's definitely some stuff where it's like I've definitely seen that before somewhere in a horror movie. But it's fine.
It's okay. Now, by the way, speaking of all of it being invented, none of this means that the Snedekers didn't truly believe the story they were telling. They very well could have believed every word, but there was a distinctive lack of evidence outside of the family's own account and the obvious support of the Warrens. Alan's sister and mother to the Snedeker nieces, Nancy Boucher, also stayed with the couple, her children, and the Snedekers' kids. And though she moved out before things got really wild, she did stay in the house that was supposedly haunted, and she said she fully believed her brother and sister-in-law, they were genuine with their experiences. And despite considering the exorcism a success, the family abandoned the house once and for all, after living there for about 2 years. Carmen saying, "The memories and things that have happened will never feel comfortable in this house again. My children are frightened to the point they won't go into the bathroom alone." Long after the family had vacated the property where it all started, Carmen, who now goes by Carmen Reed after having separated from Alan, she would later claim that the family had been forever marked and changed by their experiences. Carmen would describe being made more sensitive to the supernatural forces ever since. You ever notice that somebody has one supernatural experience, gets very, very famous, and suddenly keeps having more and more?
Let's see, they've peeked behind the veil.
That's it. Carmen even went as far as to say that when she worked as a realtor, she would be able to sense when a house was haunted. She's since moved on from selling houses into a very different career as a spiritual advisor. So
in this economy?
Yeah, I know. You're better off selling houses if you need to pay your fucking bills, Carmen. Sorry.
That's a bad career step.
Now, not everybody thought that the source of the family's troubles was anything to do with the paranormal. Daniel Kern, who remember owned the house and was leasing it to the Snedekers, he had his own suspicions as to how the house he owned had fallen victim to so many ghosts and ghouls. In 1992, Kern told a reporter that there seemed to be a strange correlation, and this is very interesting, between when the haunting would flare up and when the Snedekers were behind on rent. Whoa, what are the odds of that? Talk about coinky-dink. Subsequent owner and resident of the house, Susan Trotta Smith, would claim to have never experienced anything para to the normal, despite living there for more than a decade. She called the movie that would later be made about the story as, just all Hollywood foolishness. It's so funny, though, that whenever they were behind on the rent, oh, there's a ghost, we can't pay our rent! Now, the Snedeker family's former neighbor at 208 Meriden, her name was Catherine Altimus, she believed that the Snedekers had planned the whole haunting story before they moved in, spotting an opportunity when they saw the house was a former funeral home. Just like rubbing their hands together, thinking, this is gonna work out great. She described the family as always being happy and cheerful when she saw them, far from the family living in terror they'd sold themselves as. Neither she nor her husband ever experienced anything of the haunting, her husband adding that he believed the noises and interference were coming from outside the house, and that it was a physical person doing it. The hauntings could be explained by one of the kids just knocking on the walls outside of the home. Another neighbor, Joan Mirabel, she lived next door to the Snedekers during the time of the haunting, and she said she did visit the house and said, when she visited, she felt there was something definitely happening, but she didn't know if it was supernatural or not. Though she did also say she would often see the family on the porch, they were laughing and joking, they were having they loved that house. They seemed to be happy as a pig in shit. Neighbor Joan, she was squarely in the middle, believing there was something wrong with the house, but that the family had blown things out of proportion. She'd had her own weird experiences in the house. Something had bitten her leg once.
Oh, that was just probably Willie the pet ferret. That was in the book. They had a pet ferret.
Really?
They had a pet ferret.
Well, then that explains probably half the haunting. It's a fucking overgrown rat running around.
I hearing scratches in the wall. Yeah. Oh my God.
Another time, Jones said she saw a weird green light glowing from an upstairs window in the house. And the green light wasn't an isolated occurrence. Bradley Snedeker claimed that the lights in the house would flicker on and off, even after when bulbs, had been removed. The removal of the light bulbs, by the way, that was a response from Daddy Allen about the huge electricity bill. Because, however, it wasn't because he was cheap. He said he had the huge bill because the kids refused to sleep without the lights on. So I don't know what to believe. You're behind on rent or what's going on here? Now, Philip Snedeker would sadly pass away from a reoccurrence of cancer January 9th, 2012. He had 4 children of his own and worked as a truck driver. His life had been tragically marred by illness and drug addiction. Whatever the truth of the haunting was, I think he certainly deserved a better start to his short life. And of course, by the way, before we finish, we have to mention the movie that would be based on the Snedeker family's claims, and Ray Garton's book documenting them, The Haunting in Connecticut. The movie replaces the Snedeker family with the Campbell family, and the movie is very loosely based on the actual events reported by the Snedekers. By the way, that's a quote from Lorraine Warren said that about, she said, the movie's bullshit, but you can believe my story.
The rest is real.
But basically it's all sort of bullshit. It's a load of spooky bollocks, but it's another one of the Warren verse, the Warren movie verse. Definitely not a historical document like the book, but then again, nothing in this story is a historical document because it's all full of shit.
Yeah, I definitely believe the family believed something was happening, but they were just going through a lot. Like, they moved towns, there's son and cancer, there was a lot going on.
Yeah, maybe they just had this like collective
hysteria.
Hysteria.
Yeah. I'd like to see the movie. Have you seen the movie?
No, let me watch a trailer for it.
If you're looking for a good movie about a funeral home, though, I say The Autopsy of Jane Doe.
That's a good movie. Yeah. I did I talk about that on the podcast? I'm not sure if I did,
so,
but that's a good movie. That's a solid haunting movie for sure.
That and of course My Girl. He can't see with those glasses.
Okay, wait. I'm watching the trailer now for. We didn't deserve. It's 2009. Okay, folks, you're getting a live reaction of me and Keith.
Oh, that must be the French doors where you see stuff. Ooh.
Oh, can't wait to see that part. There's a reflection in the TV screen, folks.
That looked good.
She's hearing somebody running around upstairs.
What year was this again?
2009.
Oh, okay. Couple of jump scares thrown in.
Oh, they're finding photos of people doing seances, old-timey photos.
Well, they did find photos, but they were... Actually, they should have kept the original. It was photos of dead bodies.
Dead bodies. That's much scarier. There's a rotting apple, rotting food, something in the basement, a shadow.
This looks pretty good.
It doesn't look too bad.
I would watch this movie.
Whoa. I definitely don't think that fucking happened in the book.
No.
So there's a part when Carl Gallner, playing Philip, has writing all over him, like cut into his skin. That's the part where she gets attacked by her bath sheet. It actually doesn't look too bad.
It doesn't. I would watch that. Yeah,
hey, Keith,
good.
That's a job for you. You can.
We should have a movie night.
Keith's horror movie reviews. Yeah, we should. We haven't had one in a while.
We used to do it all the time.
I know. Well, then we just got taken over by doing the podcast together.
Right? Yeah.
Now we do this instead.
That's what happened.
And that's where we'll leave it.
We're so funny. We should have recorded this.
Yeah. Then we started recording it, and here we are.
And I still think we're funny.
All right, folks. Thank you so much for listening to me and Dirty Keith in this whole episode of the That Chapter podcast. Appreciate you joining us once again, and we'll be back with you real soon.
Yeah. And I'll see you.
All right. Take care of each other, folks, because I love ya. Bye.
It's tax season, and at LifeLock, we know you're tired of numbers. But here's a big one you need to hear. Billions. That's the amount of money in refunds the IRS has flagged for possible identity fraud. Now here's another big number. 100 million. That's how many data points LifeLock monitors every second. If your identity is stolen, we'll fix it guaranteed. One last big number. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast for the threats you can't control. Terms apply.